A wicked stepmother sold her orphan stepdaughter to a homeless man for just 10,000 naira. Less than $10. She was selling the girl into a life of misery. Subscribe and give this story a thumbs up. Zahara was painfully thin. She scarcely ate enough to survive, let alone enjoy a balanced diet. Perched behind a rickety stall at Mile 12 Market, Madame Kiru found herself with an outdated banking brochure, the faded logo flapping like a wounded bird. Her frame and cheap gold bangles clinked whenever her temper flared, which was often. Anyone poorer, shorter, or quieter instantly fell beneath her scorn, and Zahara, her fraying umbrella, so much as spied a cup inches from her elbow. She would shout Zahara's name at full volume rather. The girl fetched firewood, hauled baskets, washed pots, and if convenience allowed, might as well have brushed Nkiru's teeth. Every task became Zahara's burden. Every failure, Zahara's sin. She was not Nkiru's child, Zahara's late mother, whose life had ended alongside her husband's in a rain-slick crash on the Abuja Loja Road. Nkiru had accepted guardianship less out of love than out of greed. The money barely covered soap, and resentment fermented in Nkiru's heart like palm wine left too long in the sun. Zahara, balancing a battered basin of bitter leaf on her head, navigated the narrow aisles between stalls. The traders called him Baba Homeless, but his true name was Tand Ajala. Tand slept beneath the pedestrian bridge, swept the mosque courtyard at dawn for a handful of loose coins. Zahara noticed the gray bottle and offered him the water without a word. It was the first act of mercy Tand had known in weeks. Nkiru saw kneel there. Zahara's knees hit gravel. Tand, startled, managed a weak, grateful smile before taking the smallest sip and handing the bottle back. Market women snickered. Now wait and be that. Nkiru teased. Nkiru rolled her eyes heavenward, performing outrage for drama. Zahara's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes down. The silver rims on Nkiru's bangles, the sweat on Tand's brow. Tand cleared his throat. I only showed kindness. Kindness pays no rent, Nkiru snapped. Fetch your own drink. She dismissed Zahara with a flick of her fan. The girl rose. Yet, Tand's gaze followed her, first with pity, then wonder. Clouds gathered like charcoal smudges above Lagos. When the first fat drops splattered on rusty zinc roofs, traders scattered. Tand retreated to the bridge, hugging his tattered rucksack. Zahara ducked beneath Nkiru's umbrella to cling to the stall's wooden frame, shivering from more than the cold. Nkiru ranted about laziness. Zahara's stomach growled in soft rebellion. Across the lane, Tand leaned silently. Yet he seemed strangely composed, eyes fixed on the girl who had offered water to a stranger. None of them knew it yet. But the storm above Mile 12 was the merest whisper of the tempest to come. The rain poured for hours that night, turning Mile 12 Market into a maze of puddles. Only a few, like Madame Nikru, lingered beneath, creaking umbrellas, grumbling about the useless Lagos weather. Zahara stood barefoot in the downpour, her wrapper soaked, clinging to her frail frame like a second skin. She held the stall's wooden beam, trembling from cold and fatigue. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but she dared not speak. Nkiru watched only for the satisfaction of watching Zahara look away. Across the road, under the pedestrian bridge, Tand sat with his back to a concrete pillar, legs crossed, his threadbare copy of Proverbs tucked beneath his shirt to protect it from the rain. He hadn't eaten all day either, but the chill didn't bother him as much. Zahara, just a child, kneeling in gravel for the crime of kindness. The market opened its eyes and returned to its usual noise. Mile 12 roared back to life. Conductors shouting, "Oh, Alagba Ija CMS," and traders bargaining with vigor. Zahara had barely slept. She woke at 4 a.m. to fetch water from a leaking tap 2 streets away, swept the front of the stall, washed Nkiru's wrapper, and boiled water for her bath. By 9 a.m. she was back in the market carrying a sack of onions larger than her torso. "Madam," he said softly, stopping in front of Nkiru's stall. This time, she raised her eyes slowly, peering over her glasses as if someone had summoned a spirit. "What is it?" she asked, dragging each word. "I want to talk to you about Zahara." And Kiru paused, fork hovering midair. Then she let out a deep mocking sound that echoed under the stall roof. Toon stood firm. "Who told you I asked for advice?" And Kiru snapped, dropping her fork. "You see me complain, or are you looking for another bottle of water?" Tund bowed his head. Enkiru blinked, her expression softening just a little, folding her arms beneath her chest. "You want to adopt her?" she said slowly, like the word was a bitter leaf on her tongue. Tund nodded. "Beggar, one carry load, weigh even goat, go reject." She scoffed. Her laughter drew a few stares from nearby traders. "You weigh day sleep under bridge?" Enkiru's face tightened. Then, to Tund's surprise, her mood shifted. "You bring money?" she asked quietly. Tund froze. I didn't come with money." She pointed at Zahara, who stood a few feet away, stunned. "She day chop my food, wear my cloth, use my bucket." Zahara looked at Tund with wide, terrified eyes. Tund reached into his bag. Inside were 10 crumpled 1,000 naira notes, entire savings years of sweeping, of scrubbing toilets, of carrying loads. He had planned to use it for medicine, maybe to buy a small cart. And Kiru snatched the money, licking her thumb to count. "It theatrically? You think that's enough to feed a goat? Not to talk of a stubborn girl? She's still a child," Tund said more to himself now. There was a pause, a strange silence as Lagos thundered around them. "Fine," she said. "Let me see how long you last before you dump him." Zahara stood still. Enkiru waved her off like a fly. "Carry your load." Tund turned to the girl. "Come," he said. Zahara hesitated, looking from him to Enkiru and back again. Tund removed his oversized jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Her eyes welled as they walked away, hands not quite touching. Enkiru crossed her legs in her stall and muttered, "Good riddance." She had no idea she had just handed over the child to a man far richer than she could ever imagine. Zahara didn't speak a word for hours. She simply walked beside Tund, clutching his oversized jacket like it was the only thing tethering her to the earth. For the first time in years, no one barked orders at her. Tund didn't ask her to fetch water or scrub pots. By sunset, they reached the pedestrian bridge. He cleared a dry spot between 2 cracked pillars and laid down a piece of flattened cardboard. He set out his rucksack beneath her head, then rolled up his shirt to use as a pillow. "Sleep, my daughter," he said. Softly, Zahara's heart skipped. She lay down, eyes wide open, staring at the broken ceiling of concrete above. The distant hum of Danfo buses, the shouting of tired conductors. That night, she slept in the arms of silence. Morning came with its usual chaos. The market roared to life. Traders shouting prices, engines revving, wheelbarrows thudding against pavements. Of course, Madame Enkiru came marching in like a queen returning from battle. In shiny red slippers, she carried gossip in one hand and arrogance in the other. Word had spread quickly that Enkiru had sold the orphan to Baba Homeless. The market. Women buzzed with laughter and disbelief. As Enkiru approached her stall, she spotted Tund and Zahara. Zahara was rinsing plastic bowls with soapy water while Tund folded empty nylon bags. They looked peaceful, and that irritated Enkiru more than anything. She walked straight across the road, her voice already raised. "Zahara, how is the bridge life?" She shouted loud enough for 5 stalls to hear. "Hope your new Papa Day give you?" "Mosquito net for night o." The market women around her burst into laughter. Zahara didn't respond. Tund calmly looked up and nodded once. "Baba Homeless. Baba Homeless," and Kiru chanted mockingly. "You don start your own orphanage under bridge." Zahara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, pretending it was sweat. And Kiru wasn't used to silence. "Oya Zahara, sing for us now. Sing wet new day, sing now or you never bath." A few traders chuckled uneasily now, some beginning to feel she'd gone too far. But Enkiru enjoyed herself. She smirked and walked back to her stall, swaying her hips. Every few days, Madame Kiru would come by just to mock them. Other times, she would toss leftover food toward them and say, "Take beggar's lunch." Zahara never looked up. Tand never retaliated. But something was changing beneath the surface. Tand had begun disappearing for hours each day, telling Zahara, "Stay here, I won't be long." He would return with money, sometimes clean clothes, sometimes books. One day he came back with a cracked tablet and taught Zahara how to turn it on. Zahara started learning. Tund printed proverbs in larger font for her to memorize, but still they kept their heads low. To the market, Tund remained the homeless man. His beard stayed long, his slippers worn. Then came the morning. Zahara turned 15. Tund handed her a surprise pair of shoes. Zahara stared at them for a long time. Not the kind of tears born from pain or hunger, but from something heavier. "I don't have much," Tund said, "but this I give you." Zahara hugged him tightly. The cardboard beneath their feet suddenly felt like gold. That afternoon, Enkiru walked by again. "Zahara day, where's shoe now?" "Na bridge life, dan better," she sneered. This time, Zahara looked up. For the first time, her eyes met Enkiru's, but she didn't say a word. Enkiru looked away first. That night, Tund sat under the bridge reading. "Papa?" Zahara whispered. A small smile crept onto his lips. "Tund," he said, "but soon the world will remember the rest." The sun rose late that morning, cloaked in thick gray clouds like it too wanted to hide. Zahara stirred from sleep beneath the pedestrian bridge, rubbing her eyes against the stiffness of the concrete. She stood slowly, confusion tightening around, her chest like a noose. She scanned the bridge, no sign of Tund. She thought of the market, so she ran there barefoot, weaving through the crowd, her eyes darting like a trapped bird's. Just when she thought all hope was lost, Tund appeared again. Zahara hugged him tightly and said, "I was scared. I thought you abandoned me." Tund smiled and said, "Never, my little angel. You don't deserve that. Come, my daughter, let me take you to where you truly belong." And just like that, Tund took Zahara and vanished from mile 12. All they knew was that the popular underbridge where Tund was always seen was now empty. Both Tund and Zahara were missing. And Madame Enkiru, oh, she was practically gloating. God Dan finally answered prayer, she exclaimed to anyone who'd listen, arms folded smugly. That Yai Baba homeless and that girl Dawn vanish. Maybe trailer? Don't carry them or them fall inside gutter. She didn't stop there. Everything way where beard and act profit. He Don use jazz confused that girl. Maybe he Don sell her for ritual. Some women laughed. Some nodded. Others weren't so sure. A few had noticed the changes in Zahara, her improved speech, her sandals. The way she carried herself with quiet dignity didn't quite add up. But Enkiru didn't care. She strutted through the market like a peacock in rainy season. She was a burden, she declared. Always crying, lazy, good riddance. Could someone like Baba homeless just disappear like that, without a trace? Days turned to weeks. Zahara's name stopped coming up. Market life moved on. Goods exchanged hands. Gossip shifted to other traders. Kiru even claimed she had kicked Zahara out. "She wanted to ruin my life," she said. Every time she passed by the bridge, she smiled proudly. Then one evening, as the market was quieting, Madame Moretti's food canteen was full. Enkiru sat with her friends eating pepper soup and boasting about how her stall had sold out by 3 p.m. A battered TV was showing a national event, a multi-billion naira agro-tech hub in Lekki Free Trade Zone. Enkiru wasn't paying attention until the screen changed. There he was, Tund, standing tall in a dazzling white igbada, his beard neatly trimmed. By his side stood a radiant young girl in a powder blue gown, Zahara, hair straightened, skin glowing. The TV continued, Chief Ajala, once a man of mystery, has revealed his personal story of living among the people to understand Nigeria's grassroots market challenges. Beside him, his foster daughter, Miss Zahara Ajala, addressed the crowd about education for street children. The clip cut to Zahara speaking at a podium. Nkiru stood up, trembling. "But it looks exactly like," she stammered. "No," she shouted. "Tund was a beggar. She'll no be that girl." "No need," she muttered, grabbing her bag. That TV no day show clear. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Zahara's face on that stage. Every time she rolled over, she heard the applause. Could Baba Homeless have been a billionaire in disguise? Could she, Madame Screw, have sold her own niece for 10,000 naira? To a man who now ruled industries. The days that followed were strangely quiet in Mile 12. Market women spoke in hushed tones when Tund's name was mentioned. Some now referred to him as Chief Tund. "Are Baba Homeless no fit speak English like that?" someone scoffed. "That girl no be Zahara. Look her skin." But the laughter sounded forced. The women who once joined Nkiru's taunts now looked away. Then, word spread that a convoy of luxury SUVs had entered Lagos from Lekki and was heading toward Mile 12. Nkiru's stomach turned. By 10 a.m. the market buzzed until the sound of sirens and revving engines sliced through the air. The vehicles stopped in front of Mile 12. With the grace of royalty, Tundayala stepped out, dressed in a snow-white agbada with silver embroidery. His shoes shone. Beside him stood Zahara in a flowing lilac gown, her smile calm and composed. People gathered. "That's Baba Homeless and the girl." They gasped. Even Nkiru couldn't hide. Zahara saw her. Their eyes met. Nkiru's face drained of color. Zahara didn't flinch. She whispered into Tund's ear. Tund stepped forward. "My people," he began. "Under that very bridge," he pointed. "I was insulted. This young lady gave me water when I had none. Today I return not as the man who slept under a bridge, but as a man who was saved by kindness." Zahara stepped forward. The microphone was handed to her. She looked at the crowd, then at Nkiru. "I was sold," she began, her voice steady. "I was insulted, beaten, humiliated. But I was adopted not just by a man, but by a destiny I never saw coming. But today I have come to forgive." She walked toward Nkiru's stall. "Stepmother," she said softly. Nkiru's lips trembled. Zahara placed an envelope on the table. "Your child doesn't deserve to suffer for your mistakes." Gasps filled the air. Nkiru's tears slipped before she could stop them. Tund joined Zahara. "We forgive you," he said. Zahara turned to the crowd. "Today we brought gifts." Volunteers opened a delivery truck. Food and supplies were handed out freely. The market became a celebration. But Madame Nkiru stayed seated, frozen, tears streaming. The same girl she mocked had returned in glory. That evening, long after the convoy left, Nkiru sat alone. No friends, no gossip, only silence and shame. She picked up the envelope. Scholarship. Signed Zahara Ajala. The next morning, Nkiru didn't rise. She sat in yesterday's wrapper, eyes red, holding that envelope. The market moved on. But when Nkiru's name came up, it wasn't about business. "Nah, she way sells Zahara for 1 OK, someone whispered. She even laughed that time. The same women who once gossiped with her now avoided her. Even younger girls greeted her with pity. When Nkiru returned to her stall, she found Zahara's face on posters. "Education for every child," it read. Zahara now wore jeans and a branded t-shirt, coordinating volunteers. Everywhere Nkiru looked, Zahara was there. Someone once said, to be ignored is a wound, but to be noticed only for your shame is worse. That was Nkiru's life now. One afternoon, she stood in line for pepper. A woman in front muttered, "Madam, go use your connection, beg for scholarship." For Chidinma, laughter followed. And Kiru tightened her grip on her basket. "No," she said. "Zahara already gave me more than I deserve." But it wasn't just the market. At home, her daughter asked, "Is it true, Mommy, that you sold Zahara like a goat?" Kiru froze. "She gave me a scholarship. Why did you treat her like that?" Kiru had no answer. One evening after another, silent. Day N. Kiru wrapped herself in a clean wrapper and walked alone to the pedestrian bridge. She stood there silently, staring at the space where Zahara and Tund once slept. Then she saw a small sunflower near the pillar fresh, deliberately placed. Zahara once said it meant resilience. Her hands trembled. She turned. Zahara stood a few feet away. No makeup, no crowd. No bodyguards, just Zahara. Their eyes locked. And Kiru dropped to her knees. "I was wicked," she whispered. "I didn't treat. You like blood." Zahara stepped forward and lifted her. "Sold me," she said softly, "but I know what it feels like to be at your lowest. I wouldn't wish that shame on anyone, not even you." She placed the sunflower in Enkiru's hand. Later, Zahara stood before the Mile 12 cooperative, eyes swollen, voice shaking. To everyone's shock, she announced that Enkiru would volunteer with her foundation. At first, people mocked. But Enkiru scrubbed plates, swept floors, carried water. Zahara watched quietly. Tund, now running multiple foundations, observed from afar and said, "Some people learn through blessings, others through breaking." Zahara nodded. "She's changing." "She is," Tund agreed. "Do people like that deserve second chances?" Zahara turned to him. "If she hadn't let me go, I wouldn't be here." Tund nodded, pulling her into a side hug. "And I would have been lost." Months later, Mile 12 market had changed. Children rushed past stalls with books from the Zahara Ajala Foundation. Women who once mocked now smiled with gratitude. Every Friday, Zahara visited the bridge not to mourn, but to remember. That place, of concrete and cold, had become her altar. A reminder that greatness doesn't always rise from golden towers. One evening, Tund handed her a file. "I have something for you." Zahara opened it. Her eyes widened. "The world will now know," he said. She whispered, "Thank you." "True wealth," he replied, "lies not in our accounts, but in how many lives we touch." Adam and Kiru now served as a volunteer supervisor in Zahara's food distribution arm. She carried bags of rice, cleaned storage rooms, mentored struggling mothers who reminded her of her past. People still whispered. But she no longer hid. As the sun dipped over Mile 12 that evening, a crowd gathered at a new signboard. Zahara Ajala Foundation headquarters beneath it. The words, "When you plant kindness in the dirt of cruelty, even the mud can bloom." The market erupted in applause. Women danced. Children laughed. Zahara stood at the center. A once unwanted girl, now loved by thousands. Moral of the story: treat the least among you with kindness. You never know who they'll become.